What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian, as we continue to sift through the Boston Celtics offseason. And we are currently in the calm before the storm era. And I use the word era because that was my attempt to say something related to Taylor Swift to maybe just jam up the algorithm. But it's been a little bit of quiet on the NBA front the last couple of days. There's been a lot of rumors swirling, a lot of people saying we're about to get some chaos here in the NBA offseason with some of the biggest moves we've seen in recent NBA history. And of course, the Celtics are in the midst of it because we have the Tatum injury. We've got rumors swirling around about shedding some salary, moving off of some guys. But we also got some information dropped in the last couple of days. We mentioned yesterday's video where Tom Thibodeau got fired from the New York Knicks. There's tons of Kevin Durant reporting that we are more likely to see KD get traded before the NBA draft than after the NBA draft, which would really kickstart free agency. And then, of course, we've got all of the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors floating around, whether it's going to be in the Eastern Conference with a team like the Raptors, the Knicks, the Nets, maybe even the Celtics, or he's going to go to the Western Conference where teams with a little bit more assets but a tougher road to the finals for Giannis and teams like the Houston Rockets or the San Antonio Spurs. But all of that should be starting to drop in the next week to 2 weeks. But until then, it's just a lot of GMs whispering to each other and to Shams with some weird tweets. And then we try to sift through it all. But we were given a little bit of a gift here from our guy, Jay King, over at The Athletic, who covers the Celtics day in and day out with a little bit of a mailbag. And the thing he started with was Jaylen Brown and the type of run JB could go on without Jason Tatum around, right? Because he's going to have to be the number one option. That's what we're going to have to see. And I thought he dropped a few stats that I thought were pretty interesting. That when he was on the court, when Jaylen Brown was on the court without Tatum, Brown averaged 9.6 assists per 100 possessions, which would have ranked him top 20 in the whole freaking league. And then over the 3 games without Tatum in the playoffs, Brown averaged 27 points, 8 boards, and almost 8 assists. And he was doing that with his knee just being dragged around, right? He clearly wasn't 100% healthy as he had that partially torn ligament, or no, ligament. I was going to say tendon, but then I know somebody in the chat's going to be like, that's not what it was. So clearly JB can thrive without Tatum. Now, him being a number one option, what does that give for the Celtics as a ceiling? I don't know, like a 4 seed, a 5 seed maybe, but I do think we're about to see some pretty impressive numbers for Jaylen Brown. So this is not financial advice, but if you're a betting man, I think he's probably going to be in like the fringe MVP conversation if the Celtics are able to hang into like that. If they're able to hang into a top 4 spot, assuming they trade a couple of pieces and without Jason Tatum, I think JB would be like a top 5, let's say top 7 MVP candidate. I'm not saying he's going to win MVP. He's going to be far behind guys like Jokic, most likely Luka, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, wherever he is. But then I could see him floating in that area. I don't think that's crazy to see, which is going to force a lot of Boston fans to have a come to Jesus moment about how they feel about Jaylen Brown, because I know a lot of you are frustrated with his left-handed dribble, but everything else is through the moon. But anyways, I do think it'll be a fun season to watch JB flourish and see how he can act as a number one guy. And maybe for some of you, he'll earn that $300 million contract he got that everybody seems to point out every time we say he's overpaid, right? So I don't know, that something to look forward to see how JB can handle on the number one role for the Beantown Boys and the Celtics. There was some Porzingis stuff in this little piece from Jay King too, which I thought was interesting because I think I think in my head, the way that I've been approaching this offseason is the Celtics have to move off of both Jrue and KP. That's kind of how I've been looking at it. I think that's what they should do. But there is a world in which they don't do it right away. Like they probably want to get under the cap, the second apron, before this new season starts. However, if they're able to move off of Jrue this offseason, you could like play Porzingis' value back up a little bit. And I thought that was like and this isn't necessarily what Jay King said, but he did come out and say something about Porzingis' play. Because and this is to quote Jay, right? He said, while fighting through lingering symptoms of a virus, he shot an abysmal 31.6% from the field. The Celtics were 18.7 points per 100 possessions better without him on the floor, right? Now, this is during the playoffs. Now, we know that because we've watched the game. But you know who else knows that? Every single other general manager in the NBA. So Porzingis' value, even though he's only got 1 year left, even though it's only $30 million, right? So it's kind of an expiring contract, you're still like that stink of his value is still there. But I do think there is a world, right, where Porzingis comes back and then they do their best to move him mid-season, unless the Celtics are just out kicking their coverage, if you will, and outperforming. Maybe they want to keep him for the run. But I thought this was an interesting point too, because we forget about this. He said, "This is again Jay King from the Athletic. After his initial bout with the illness that sidelined him for 8 consecutive games from late February to mid-March." Pause. I actually thought that was a lot longer than that. I thought it was a lot longer than just 8 games, but okay. But when he came back from that illness, he averaged 22.3 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 1.3 blocks per game over the next 9 games as they headed into the playoffs. He shot 54% from the field and 46% from three. The Celtics outscored their opponents by 19.2 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor during that stretch. So, if we were talking about moving off of Porzingis during that run, think about how much higher his value would be, right? Where it wouldn't be like, oh, we're just trying to get off him for a cost-saving thing. I think teams would genuinely and legitimately be interested in adding Porzingis to a playoff contending team because of what he can bring to the table. Now, all we have left in our that taste in our mouth is him just I don't know, puffing an inhaler, trying to run up and down. I still not, and I love Luke Cornett. I think Luke Cornett is hilarious. I still can't believe, though, in real time, during the second round of the NBA playoffs as a defending champion team, me and you were all being like, can we get Porzingis off the floor? We need more Luke Cornett minutes. We need more Keita minutes. That's what we were doing. And I think everyone else remembers that too. So maybe the move with Porzingis, instead of just trying to get rid of him before the season starts. Also, when you say get rid of him, it sounds bad, but you know what I mean. Instead of doing that, maybe you just let him play himself back and play his value back up. Maybe he has a good Eurobasket summer with Latvia, and then he comes back in October and November. Celtics play pretty well. The three-point shot's falling. He's still doing some rim protecting stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's the approach instead of just trying to get off him right away. It still sucks that that's where we're at, where we're like, how can we get rid of some of these guys? Because I really do like Porzingis as a Celtic. He seems to have found a home there. I know he loves playing with Jaylen Brown. And there's still a world where they keep him, right? There is still a world where they keep him for the entirety of the season. But I think I'm now more on team player value back up instead of just trading him right away. So that was a little it's not even an update on KP, just an update on my brain and how I've been thinking about KP. And then he also mentioned the Jrue and Dallas Mavericks fit, which I go back and forth on. I mean, Dallas was just so aggressive and I don't know, borderline insane with the Luka deal. And part of me thinks that they're just going to pump the brakes and just let them draft Cooper Flag and then see how the roster works itself out. But on the other hand, you have Anthony Davis, who I think is 31 but feels 38. You have Kyrie Irving, who does not have both of his ACLs right now. You have Klay Thompson, who again also feels a lot older than he is. They have some young pieces in Max Christie, but they literally have no guards. I mean, they've got no guards, right? It's freaking Spencer Dinwiddie. It's Brandon Williams. It's go to ChatGPT and just come up with a name for me, right? That's the type of guy they're rolling out there as a guard. And as Nico Harrison said 400 times, they are in win now mode, right? And so what is a more win now player than Jrue Holiday? And I keep going back and forth and I've talked about this on some other platforms as well, do the Celtics have to attach another asset to Jrue Holiday? And I guess it's all the eye of the beholder, right? I think if you're sending him to a team that's literally just kind of doing you a favor in getting some money off the table, and then, yeah, maybe you're going to have to attach a pick, right? Because it's $32 million this year, 34, 37, something like that, right? He's got 3 more years left on his deal. But if it's a team that's trying to win right now and it makes a ton of sense, say, the Dallas Mavericks, then maybe this deal makes a little bit more sense and you won't have to attach it. And especially because Dallas has the right pieces that I think they would be comfortable moving off of, right? They have this surplus of centers right now. Centers in just 4s and 5s, let's call it, right? So they have Anthony Davis, who you assume they're going to keep. They have Derek Lively, who just finished his second year, who, again, was pretty instrumental in their finals run 2 years ago, was a perfect match with Luka, but then also battled a ton of injuries this past season. They have Daniel Gafford, too, who's also, getting ready to get paid as a starting center, as he said. And then they have P.J. Washington. So I do think there is a world where you can take 2 of those guys, most likely Gafford and P.J. Washington, and then slide Jrue Holiday over there. They also have some other pieces like Max Christie and some that they got from the Lakers deal. But I think the way Max plays actually makes a ton of sense for Dallas. But I think in a situation like that, you might not have to add a pick or add some other throw in, right? The other spot that I think makes a ton of sense for this type of deal is the Los Angeles Clippers, who are still also in win now mode, right? They've got Harden and James Harden was a player option. We assume he's going to stay with the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Ivica Zubac, right? They have a team that is like win now mode, and Jrue Holiday makes a ton of sense there. You always want like a solid defensive guard that can also knock down threes, put him next to James Harden. And then the Celtics can, like, that's going to really save them some money by moving off of him. You can get somebody like Bogdan Bogdanovic back, maybe Chris Dunn, Providence Fryer, or Derek Jones Jr., right? And so those are the two situations that I would keep an eye on the most. Both teams that are starting to age a little bit, that know that their window's closing, they're trying to win now, they're in a tougher Western Conference, might be a little bit more desperate to get a piece like Jrue Holiday, who again, step back offensively, sure, step back defensively in the playoffs, but maybe was battling a quad thing. You add somebody like that who's, multi-championship guy onto your roster, good locker room guy. Everybody seems to love Jrue Holiday. So I think both of those situations make sense, and I think that's what I would try to target if I were the Celtics, just so you don't have to attach another pick, because that just feels gross. Feels gross. We're like, hey, please take one of our better guys, but also, here's a pick. Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So those are the updates for the Celtics for this week. I did want to touch, we got game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. OKC Thunder, Indiana Pacers. I don't know. I can't think of a world where the Pacers actually take this series, and maybe that's me doubting Rick Carlisle. Okay, big Rick Carlisle or Tyrese Halliburton or Spicy P, Pascal Siakam. I just don't. Man, the Thunder seem like so good. The second the Boston Celtics got eliminated from the playoffs, this felt like it was OKC's chip to lose, because I thought the Celtics were one of the few teams that matched up with them both offensively and defensively. They seem to go toe to toe in every matchup, and the Celtics, one of the flaws of the Oklahoma City Thunder is allowing 3-point shooting. And Joey Maz, baby. Missoula's like, chuck that three, almost to a detriment, some would say. And so that's a little bit of a bummer that we're not going to see the Celtics have a chance to repeat against this historically great regular season team that really has run through the playoffs. I mean, they swept Memphis. They just beat the pants off of them. Denver, again, taking a step back, holy crap, the Nuggets seem to have been way closer to a championship than it felt like, considering they fired their coach a week before the playoffs started, right? They were the only team to really threaten OKC, because then even in the conference finals against Minnesota, OKC had that one game where they didn't show up. Game 3 in Minnesota, they kind of took their foot off the gas, and Minnesota went nuts in that first half. But since then, they just rolled, man, right? So Memphis in 4, Denver in 7. They beat Denver in 7, and then Minnesota in 5. So I don't know. I kind of just think OKC wins this one in 5. They probably take the first 2 games in OKC, get one shoddy game in Indiana, give them a little bit of hope, let John Cougar Mellencamp and Pat McAfee have some fun at home, and then they probably finish it in OKC in Game 5. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't know. It's just a bummer the Celtics aren't there. But you know what? We have to grow. We have to grow. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If it's your first time here, what are you doing? Subscribe to the channel. You need to know when we're dropping some videos. Hit the notification bell. And then, I don't know, leave something in the comment. How do we feel about those Jrue Holiday deals? Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.